The alarms start before the doors even slide open. St. Augustine Trauma Center hums at full tilt. Sirens seep through the walls, monitors argue in thin notes. Antiseptic hangs in the air. An orderly leans into a set of double doors, steering a stretcher with his hip, while his hands fight a knot of tubing. Dr. Lena Rios walks in as if the floor were steady. She moves efficiently, shoulders loose. As she passes the triage desk, she nudges a half-rolled blood pressure cuff back onto its hook without looking. A clerk starts to call her name, then stops when he sees her head already turning toward a monitor, whose tone has climbed by half a note. At the far end of the hall, a curtain hangs half open. Inside, 2 nurses crowd a man with a scalp cut that bleeds freely. He is awake and loud. Off to the side, a boy with a cast on his arm lies very still, lips pale, chest moving in small, tight pulls. His monitor blinks in a pattern no one is watching. Lena steps into the room. She looks once at the man, once at the boy. Her hand reaches past a nurse to straighten the nasal cannula that has slipped from the boy's nostril. Her fingers find the oxygen knob by touch and twist. The pulse oximeter number climbs. "Doc, we need more hands over here," one of the nurses says, voice tight, eyes still on the louder patient. "You have them," Lena answers. She keeps her gaze on the slow rise of the boy's chest. He can wait. The dizzy one in Bay 3 cannot. She does not raise her voice. She says it the way someone might read off a lab value. The nurse moves. Out in the corridor, a gurney squeals. The sound rebounds off tile and glass. The fluorescent lights above her flare a little too bright. A sharper alarm from somewhere else in some other year presses at the edges of her hearing. She lets out a slow breath, and the hallway steadies. A supply cart brushes her shoulder. A clamp slides off the metal edge and begins to fall. Her hand flashes out. Cold steel meets her palm with a soft click. The orderly pushing the cart freezes. "Sorry, doctor," he mutters. The trauma pager at the charged nurse's hip erupts. Voices rise, wheels squeal, alarms answer one another. The sound folds into another beeping that lives at the back of Lena's mind. That alarm is softer, but it never stops. Earlier that morning, it had been the only sound in the room. Her phone buzzed on the crate that passed for a nightstand. Lena opened her eyes to a square of ceiling, washed in blue streetlight, slipping through the blinds. She lay still for one slow breath, listening. No rotor wash, no distant blasts, only the low hum of the building. She sat up and set her feet on the floor. Concrete cooled her soles. The apartment held what it needed. One low bed, one folding table, 3 pairs of running shoes in a straight line against the wall. She unrolled a mat and dropped into plank elbows under shoulders, spine straight, breath steady. When her arms began to tremble, she counted 10 more breaths before she eased back. Cold water from the tap bit at her face. The mirror showed dark hair pulled tight at the nape of her neck and faint shadows under her eyes. She met her own gaze for a moment, then reached for a towel. By the door, she laced her shoes and double-knotted each bow. The hallway outside smelled of detergent and reheated food. The elevator hummed on the way down. When it opened onto the street, warm air rolled in even at dawn. The sky over Phoenix was a pale sheet color, just starting to find it. She started to run. The sidewalk passed under her feet in a steady rhythm. Her breath settled into a pattern she knew as well as any vital sign. Traffic thickened on the main road. A siren wailed, far off climbed, then faded. Her stride hitched for half a second, waiting for the old surge of adrenaline. It did not come. She turned a corner, and the hospital rose ahead, a block of concrete and glass, catching the first light. From the street, St. Augustine looked peaceful, the helipad empty, and the emergency entrance just a pair of glass doors and a security guard with a coffee cup. Lena slowed at the crosswalk pulse drumming in her ears. She slipped a hand into her pocket and felt the edge of her new ID badge, smooth plastic under her thumb. When the light changed, she crossed toward the hospital, toward the doors waiting to slide open at her approach. The glass doors sighed open, and cool air spilled over her as she stepped inside. The lobby was nearly empty. A volunteer in a blue vest wiped down clipboards. The security guard glanced up, nodded, and returned to his phone. Lena clipped her badge to her collar and crossed the floor to the staff elevators. She rode alone down to the service level. The lights hummed. In the reflection on the metal doors, she saw her skin still flushed from the run hair, pulled tight white coat folded over her arm. The doors opened onto the corridor behind the emergency department. The air was cooler here, sharp with bleach and old coffee. Refrigerators and ice machines murmured along the wall. She slipped through the back entrance into the trauma bay. Half the lights were off. Monitors glowed faintly over empty stretchers. Stainless steel tables waited in neat rows. Without voices or bodies, the room looked smaller, the corners darker. Lena set her coffee on the counter and went to the wall of oxygen tanks. Her palms brushed cool green metal as she checked each valve. She cracked them open just enough to hear the hiss and watched the needles climb. One gauge shook as it rose, then dropped. The sound from that tank stuttered instead of flowing. She closed it, tagged it, and rolled it aside. At the first bed, she woke the monitor with a tap. The screen brightened. She checked the cables and adjusted until the rhythm traced a clean, clear line. On the prep table, a tray sat under a blue drape. Night shift had left it for the next trauma. She lifted the cloth. Clamps, scalpels, forceps, suture tubing, all present, scattered like loose change. She pulled the tray closer. Needle, clamp, suture, tubing. Her hands moved on their own. She did not read labels. She measured distances with her fingers, set angles so the curve of a clamp matched the direction a hand would reach. Each piece landed with a soft metallic click on the steel. Footsteps sounded in the hall. The overheads flicked brighter and washed the shadows out of the corners. "You redecorating my trays?" The voice carried easy irritation. Lena turned. A nurse stood in the doorway, dark hair pulled into a loose bun that had already started to fall apart. Her badge read, Lake Janice. She hugged a clipboard to her chest. "I'm lining up the instruments," Lena said, "so you can grab them without looking." Janice walked in and stopped at the edge of the table. Her eyes moved over the tray, taking in the new pattern. "We have our way of doing it," she said. "People know where things are. You move everything somebody reaches for a clamp and comes up with a needle. That is blood on the floor." Lena picked up a curved clamp, weighed it in her hand, then set it back where she wanted it. "When your hands know the pattern," she said, "you save 3 seconds. Janice let out a breath and watched Lena's hands. "You military?" she asked. "I have worked in places where we could not afford to miss," Lena said. Janice studied her face for a moment. Some of the tension around her mouth eased. "Charge nurse is going to love this," she said. A hint of a smile touched her voice. "Then I will explain it to her," Lena answered. Janice snorted. "You do that, Dr. Rios. I am getting coffee while it is still quiet." Her shoes squeaked as she left. The sound faded into the hum of machines. Lena finished arranging the tray, then moved to the next bed. She worked along the row until full tanks stood in a line, monitors blinked awake, and every instrument tray matched the last. By the time the first residents drifted in, the bay looked ready. The clock above the central station read 6:45 when the front doors banged and voices spilled through. "Morning, Janice," someone called from the hall. "Smells like bleach and bad decisions already." Lena turned toward the noise. A knot of people in scrubs entered together, talking over one another. In front walked a man in his 40s with sun lines at the corners of his eyes and silver at his temples. He wore his stethoscope like a necklace and carried a paper cup with his name in thick black marker. The badge on his coat read, Ellison Mark, MD. He set his cup on the counter and leaned on his elbows, studying the board where overnight admissions and discharges were listed. 2 interns hovered behind him, trying to look alert. "Morning," he said to no one in particular. "Did someone cancel the apocalypse while I was off, or are we still on for today?" "Operatum." A few tired laughs answered. Mark's gaze moved through the sea until it settled on Lena. His eyes flicked to her badge, then back up. "You must be the transfer," he said. "Rios right out of state, somewhere dusty, I heard." "Something like that," Lena said. He walked past the nearest bed, his glance sliding over the instrument tray. "New doctor, new tray pattern," he said. "This place really works to keep me on my toes." "If it helps," Lena said, "the pattern is built for speed." Mark smiled without showing teeth. "Everyone who comes through here thinks they are going to shave seconds off something. Around here, the only vital sign that never drops is seniority." He said it lightly. The intern still shifted a little closer to him as if the words were policy. Lena let the remark hang. She picked up a pack of gauze, tore it open, and stacked the squares in the bedside cart. Near the wall, a monitor changed. Tone a slightly higher pitch at the end of each beep. No one turned. In Bay 7, an older woman from the night shift, still waiting on a bed upstairs, coughed with a wet rattle and pressed a hand to her chest. Lena glanced at her at the monitor at the chart clipped to the foot of the bed. "I will check on 7, she said. At the central desk, Carla Nguyen had just arrived and was sorting clipboards into stacks. Her badge caught the light as she looked up. "Go ahead," Carla said. "We are light for the moment." Lena pulled a glove from the box and walked to Bay 7. The monitor kept its subtle climb. The woman's breath whistled on the exhale, soft and strained. Lena stepped closer and listened. The woman in Bay 7 smelled faintly of menthol rub and stale perfume. Her gray hair was twisted into a loose knot against the pillow. Every breath she took whistled on the way out, as if the air were squeezing past something it did not want to touch. Lena laid a hand on the woman's shoulder. "Miss Carson," she said. "I am Dr. Rios. How is the breathing?" "Feels like I swallowed a brick," the woman said. Her voice broke over the words. "Chest is tight. They said it was just heartburn." Lena glanced at the monitor. The tracing was not dramatic, but each beat came a little more quickly than the last. Oxygen saturation sat just lower than she liked. She placed her stethoscope on the woman's back and listened. Fine crackles whispered under the lower ribs. She moved the diaphragm higher then to the front mapping fields of sound. "Has anyone given you anything yet?" Lena asked. "Some pills," Ms. Carson said. "Pink one, white one, I do not know." Lena checked the chart at the foot of the bed. Antacid, a small dose of a pain reliever, no diuretic, no repeat vitals in the last hour. She looked up at the nearest nurse. "Can we get a set of lungs and a pressure on 7, she said softly. "And a page to medicine. I want someone to see her before she goes upstairs." The nurse nodded and reached for a cuff. Carla, who was passing with a stack of charts, slowed as she heard. "Something brewing?" Carla asked. "She is edging the wrong way," Lena answered. "Better to move before she slides." Carla studied the older woman, then Lena, then made a note on her clipboard. "All right," she said. "I will bump her on the board." The overhead speaker crackled. "Trauma team to Bay 1. Trauma team to Bay 1. Carla's head came up. The easy tone she used at the desk dropped away. "That is us," she said. "Motor vehicle coming in hot. Rios, you good?" Lena nodded and slipped out of Bay 7. The noise in the hall sharpened. Somewhere near the ambulance bay, a siren yelped twice and cut off. By the time she reached Bay 1, Janice had the room half ready. The monitor was on. A tray waited at the bedside, already in the pattern Lena had set that morning. Mark stood at the foot of the wood, pulling on gloves. One of the interns fumbled with a gown plastic rustling. "What do we have?" Mark asked. Carla checked the trauma sheet. "Single car into a divider," she said. "Pickup truck. Driver only. Belted. Airbags deployed. Probable blunt chest, maybe abdominal. Vitals a little soft in the field, better with fluids. No obvious bleed." The doors to the bay flew open. Paramedics rolled in a stretcher with a man in his 30s. His beard was patchy, and there was dried blood in it from a cut on his cheek. The front of his t-shirt was streaked with gray from the airbag dust. A faint bruise the shape of a crescent darkened the skin where the seatbelt had crossed his chest. "Name is Daniel Cortez," the lead medic said. 33, GCS, 15. Pressure was 90/60 in the field, came up to 110 with fluids. Heart rate in the 120s. Breath sounds equal when we checked a little tight on the right now. Daniel's eyes were open but glazed. He tried to lift his hand, found the restraint, and gave up. "I am going to fall," he mumbled. "You are lying down, sir," Janice said. "You are not going anywhere." Team members crowded in each to their station. One took the airway. Another cut the shirt, exposing chest and abdomen. Purple was blooming along the left ribs. The breath sounds on the right were thinner now, the air rasping shallowly. "Portable chest is on the way," someone said. "Radiology is tied up." Mark pressed his fingers into Daniel's belly, checking for guarding, then moved up to the ribs. "Pain when I push?" he asked. "Only when I breathe," Daniel said. His voice came out weak. Sweat beaded at his hairline. The monitor showed a heart rate of 130 now. Oxygen saturation slipped a few points. Lena watched from the right side of the bed. She saw the swell of one side of the chest rise fuller than the other. The veins at the base of the neck began to stand a little higher. "Breath sounds are quieter on the right," she said. "Probably a contusion," Mark said. "Let us get the chest film and see what we are dealing with." The room settled into a strained wait. The radiograph tech hurried in, pushed the plate under Daniel, angled the machine, and stepped back. "Do not move," he said. "Deep breath in, hold it." Daniel tried. The effort made his face twist. The machine buzzed. The tech slipped out with the plate. "Film in 5, he called. Time did not want to wait that long. The monitor tone climbed again. The beeps packed closer together. Blood pressure sagged. The numbers flickered, then steadied lower. Daniel's lips paled. The right side of his chest barely moved now. Each breath seemed to drag through mud. "I cannot get air," he said. Lena felt the room hesitate. Eyes went to the door, to the ceiling, anywhere but the rising neck veins. "He is tanking a bit," Mark said. "Let us give another bolus and hold for the film." "He does not have 5 minutes," Lena said. The words came out quiet, but they landed. Mark looked at her. "You want to do something before we even see what the film shows?" he asked. "That is a lot of steel near some pretty important real estate." Lena placed her hand on the right side of Daniel's chest. The space beneath her fingers felt tight and drum-like. "Trachea is shifting," she said. "Neck veins are up. One side rising, one side not. Pressure dropping." "That is not a contusion." She lifted her head. "I need a 14-gauge catheter," she said. "Long as you have. Prep the right chest. 4th or 5th intercostal space, anterior to mid-axillary line." An intern hesitated by the tray. "Do not you usually go 2nd intercostal mid-clavicular?" he asked. "In a thin chest, yes," Lena said. "In a man with this much tissue, it turns into guesswork. Lower gives you more room, less chance of hitting what you cannot see." Carla nodded once. "You heard her," she said. "Get the kit. Betadine on the field. Monitor the pressure." Lena pulled on a fresh pair of sterile gloves. Daniel's eyes found hers. What are you doing? He whispered. Making room for your lungs, she said. Stay with me, Daniel. Janice swabbed the skin brown, spreading over bruised white. Lena counted ribs by feel, found the space she wanted, and placed a small wheel of local anesthetic. She took the catheter, her left hand steadied against the rib below the space, her right hand guided the needle in. When she felt bone, she walked the tip up and over, careful to keep above the neurovascular bundle. There was resistance for a moment, then a sudden give. A sharp hiss of trapped air rushed out around the needle. The monitor beeped on the tone, easing down in pitch as the pressure began to climb. Daniel's chest rose a little higher on the right. His next breath came easier. Oh, he said, that is better. Lena advanced the catheter, withdrew the needle, and listened again. Breath sounds improved, though still not perfect. She secured the line. Get a chest tube tray ready, she said. He will need a more permanent solution once we get him upstairs. Mark watched the monitor, the numbers now climbing back into safer territory. He blew out his cheeks. You went ahead without imaging, he said. If we had waited for the picture, Lena said we would be looking at it over a flat line. He opened his mouth, then closed it. The radiograph tech returned holding the fresh film. No one rushed to pin it up. The urgency had passed. Let us take a look anyway, Mark said at last. As the team adjusted lines and secured dressings, Carla moved near Lena. Nice catch, Carla said under her breath. Lena peeled off her gloves. The body does not wait for paperwork, she said. The trauma bay settled. Daniel went upstairs with a chest tube draining air and his pressure holding steady. The scent of antiseptic and sweat lingered after the stretcher had gone. They did not get much time to breathe. An EMS radio crackled at the desk. Carla reached for it. St. Augustine. This is Rescue 12, a paramedic said. We are bringing you a male about 40 construction site. Lower extremities crushed under a concrete slab for about an hour before extrication. He is pale, diaphoretic, hypotensive. We have a line and started fluids. Urine in the Foley is pretty dark already. Carla glanced at the clock, then at the board. Copy Rescue 12, she said. You have Bay 2. Anything else we should know? Long transport, the voice replied. 15 out. He keeps trying to pass out on us. We keep him talking. He is not liking it. Lena heard from across the station. She could see the scene in her mind without trying. Concrete dust, twisted rebar, the slow, cruel squeeze of time on muscle. She moved closer to Carla. Start warming fluids now, Lena said. He will need more than he has. Watch his urine carefully. If it stays that dark, think about bicarb. And get someone to measure compartment pressures in his legs as soon as they can. If they climb, he will need a knife, not more guessing. Mark approached, having caught the last part. Let us not get ahead of ourselves, he said. We will get him here, get labs, see what his potassium looks like before we start chasing rhabdo protocols. He has been pinned for an hour, Lena said. His kidneys have already started the clock. We are not in a tent hospital, Mark answered. We can afford to know what we are treating. Carla's eyes shifted between them. I will have the fluids ready, either way, she said. When Rescue 12 rolled in, the man on the stretcher was the color of old paper. Concrete dust streaked his beard and caked his boots. His jeans were cut to the thigh. The skin of his lower legs bulged tight and shiny. His feet were cold when a nurse touched them. We got about a liter into him, the paramedic said. Pressure is hovering around 90. He keeps asking if they can save his boots. The man's lips cracked as he tried to smile. I just bought them, he whispered. Boots are the least of it, friend, Janice said gently. They set to work. Lines, labs, monitors. Someone started a second liter of saline. Mark ordered a full panel electrolytes, CK renal function. He stood at the foot of the bed, running through differential diagnoses under his breath. Lena stayed at the edge of the bay. Carla caught her eye. You are not coming in, Carla asked. You have hands, Lena said. You do not need mine for lines. What do you think, Carla asked quietly. He needs volume, Lena answered. Probably bicarbonate, and someone should put a needle into those compartments and see what the pressure is doing. If it traps his blood long enough, you save his life and lose his legs. Carla looked at the man's swollen calves, at his boots lying neatly beneath the bed. I will page ortho now, she said. Time stretched. The labs took longer than anyone liked. The man's pressure wobbled, then stabilized with fluids. His skin stayed pale. His toes never warmed. Eventually, a resident from orthopedics arrived. He examined the legs, ordered compartment measurements, then frowned at the numbers. These are high, he said. We need to get him upstairs for fasciotomies. Do what you have to, the patient murmured. Just do not tell my wife until after you fix me. He tried to laugh. It came out thin. They wheeled him away. His boots stayed under the bed for a moment before a tech gathered them up, laces dangling. The hallway outside grew quiet once the noise moved onto the elevator. Only the soft tick of the big clock over the doorway and the low hum of machines broke it. Lena stood with her back to the wall, watching the empty space where the stretcher had been. Carla stepped up beside her. He made it, Carla said. He did, Lena replied. You pushed for fluids early, Carla said. For pressure checks. You were right. Lena's eyes stayed on the elevator doors at the end of the hall. By the time the labs came back, she said his feet were gone an hour ago. Carla did not answer. The monitor in Bay 2 still glowed its bed bare, forming a steady, meaningless rhythm. Somewhere a clamp clicked shut on metal. In Lena's chest, her own breath moved in and out, slow and controlled, as if she were matching it to a sound no one else could hear. They found each other again at the end of the shift in the small room off the main hall, where the computers hummed and the coffee sat cold on a warming plate. Mark stood at a terminal scrolling through charts. The crush injury case glowed on the screen, lab values and timestamps marching past in neat lines. He frowned once, twice, then leaned back and rubbed the bridge of his nose. Lena stepped in, looking for an open computer to finish her notes. She saw the screen before she saw him. CK over 10,000, potassium edging up, creatinine climbing. The labs caught up, she said. Mark glanced over his shoulder. They did, he said. Rhabdomyolysis, compartment pressures through the roof. Ortho took him straight to the operating room. Legs, Lena asked. Not good, Mark answered. But they will try. He spoke like a man reading from a weather report. He looked back at the monitor, then at her. We do not get credit here for could have been, he said. The chart says he got what he needed. The numbers will defend the decisions. Lena set her file down on the desk and rested her fingers lightly on the edge. The numbers will defend you, she said. The wife will not know where to place her anger. That is something. The system is not built on feelings, Mark said. No, she agreed. It is built on bodies that either walk or do not. The air between them held steady. You are used to different rules, he said. I'm used to clocks that do not stop just because we have a form to fill out, she said. He gave a small, tired smile. We are not out in the field anymore, he said. We have tools here, imaging, labs, consultants. Time makes room for those things. Until it does not, Lena said. He studied her for a moment longer, as if trying to see the places she had stored whatever she carried. Get some rest, Dr. Rios, he said finally. You are back tomorrow. So are you, she answered. She left him with the glow of the monitor on his face and the cursor blinking over the word stable. By midweek, her name had taken on a particular weight in the department. At the nurse's station, someone mentioned how she had caught the tension pneumothorax before the film. In the hallway, an EMT told another how she had heard a monitor change tone from 3 bays over. A respiratory therapist noticed how she never flinched when alarms blared, how her head turned before anyone else's. Rios has radar, one of the residents said under his breath. Janice rinsed a vial in the sink and shook her head. She is quick, I will give her that, Janice said. She also rearranged my entire world on that instrument tray. I'm still trying to forgive her. Carla listened while flipping through the census. She has not been wrong yet, Carla said. Yet the resident echoed. One afternoon, an EMS tech who sometimes floated to the trauma center leaned on the counter while waiting for a signature. Saw her name once, he said, nodding toward Lena's badge, where it lay on the desk. In a briefing back when I was still in. Someplace overseas, big dust storm, power out, people bleeding in the dark. They did not use names mostly, just call signs and units. But they said a doctor kept her team cutting in the dark for 12 hours. Rios, they said. Could be a different one, though. Carla looked at him. You think we got that same doctor standing right over there arguing about oxygen tanks? She asked. Stranger things have happened, he said. He took his signed paper and left. The conversation dissolved into other talk. The idea stayed. The next day began with a sky the color of old steel. By afternoon, rain had pushed in from the west flat and hard, turning the streets slick and the desert smell into something sharper. Lightning flashed over the low line of mountains, answering the sirens that never quite stopped. In the early evening, the EMS radio on Carla's hip started to chatter more than usual. Faint voices overlapped, then clarified. St. Augustine, this is Highway Patrol, a dispatcher said. We have a multiple vehicle collision on Interstate 10 eastbound near mile marker 142. Reports of 7 vehicles involved, at least 9 injured, some trapped. Carla reached for the base station and nodded toward the whiteboard. Copy Highway Patrol, she said. We are notifying trauma. Stand by with numbers and status as you get them. She looked up. All right, she called out. Listen up, we have a big one coming. Multiple vehicles, multiple patients. I want beds cleared if they can go upstairs and discharges out the door before we have ambulances stacked in the bay. Mark stepped in from the far side of the room, coffee in hand. Full trauma alert, he said. Get anesthesia on standby blood bank, ready, and let radiology know we are about to own them. He moved to the board, started wiping names and rewriting them, grouping bays by severity. Rios, Carla called. Lena appeared at her elbow. You are with me at the desk, Carla said. Documentation talking to EMS on arrival, making sure orders make it into charts. We will need a brain here more than another pair of hands in the room. Mark has lead on the floor. Residents take primary in bays 3 through 6, nurses pair up. Lena took the headset Carla handed her. You want me off the front line, she said. I want eyes that see patterns, Carla said. From here, you can see all of it, not just the person in front of you. Lena hesitated, then nodded. The rain hammered the windows. Minutes later, the first ambulance siren swelled and cut off as it backed into the bay. Then another, then another. The doors from the ambulance entrance burst open in rapid succession. Gurneys rolled in, voices layered over one another. 52-year-old male front seat restrained, possible head injury, vitals holding. Teenage female rear seat not belted, facial lacerations, maybe ribs. Driver of a compact sedan, chest pain, short of breath, tacky, borderline pressure. The whiteboard filled with room assignments. Colored pins marked priority. From her place at the desk, Lena watched the flow. She saw how beds filled, how the line from the door to Bay 1 to radiology began to knot. Mark moved from patient to patient, issuing orders, checking pupils, listening to breath. Sounds tossing decisions over his shoulder. "Put that one in yellow," he said, pointing to a man with a bleeding scalp and clear speech. "Red for the one with chest pain and low pressure. Get her to Bay 2. The woman with chest pain, mid-40s, was rolled past the desk. Her face was gray-mouthed tight around shallow breaths. A cervical collar framed her jaw. Her eyes flicked toward the ceiling tiles as if counting them. Lena plugged in the headset and listened to a paramedic from another unit giving report. "St. Augustine, this is Rescue 9. We have a 38-year-old female driver of a minivan belted, airbags deployed, conscious, GCS 15. Complains of hip pain. Pressure 95/60, heart rate 120. No obvious external bleeding, abdomen soft. We are 5 minutes out." She wrote quickly, then called to Carla. "Bay 4, Carla said. Yellow tag. She can wait behind the reds." The room grew thick with sounds. The hum of suction, the rattle of carts, the slap of wet shoes on tile. The air smelled of wet clothing, coolant, gasoline, copper. Lena synced what she heard on the radio with what she saw rolling through the doors. Her pulse ticked a little faster. She wanted a pair of gloves in her hands, metal under her fingers, but her place was at the desk. The woman from Rescue 9 arrived on a stretcher that glided a little too smoothly. Her face was pale, lips pressed together. One hand clutched at the blanket over her hips. Her legs lay straight, but her knees had a strange, relaxed angle to them that did not match the tension in the rest of her body. "Name is Amanda Holt," the paramedic said. "No loss of consciousness. Says her hip feels like it is in 2 places at once. We gave some opioids, trying not to tank her pressure more." As Amanda passed, Lena noted the slight outward rotation of the right foot, the way the sheets tented oddly over her pelvis. The monitor on the portable unit rode at the edge of the frame, numbers bouncing. Heart rate 125, pressure ticking down toward 90. "Bay 4, Carla called, waving the stretcher toward an open curtain. Inside Bay, 4 residents focused on a younger man with cuts across his forehead. Amanda's stretcher waited in the hall for a moment, wedged between the wall and another cart. "Just park her there," someone said. "We will get to her when we clear space." The paramedic looked uncertain but obeyed. Amanda lay still, knuckles white on the blanket. A dark line of sweat ran along her hairline. Lena slipped off the headset. "Carla," she said, "she should not be parked." "We are full," Carla said without looking up. "Red's first. She is talking, breathing, not bleeding out on the floor." "She may be bleeding where you cannot see it," Lena said. She stepped away from the desk and moved to the stretcher. Lena said, "I am Dr. Rios. Tell me what hurts most." "Hips," Amanda said. Her jaw shook with the effort. "Feels like the road came up through them." Lena placed her hands briefly at the top of Amanda's thighs. Fingers on the bony prominences she could feel just under the skin. "Did anyone put a binder on her?" she called. "No," the paramedic answered. "We just splinted what we could, patted under her knees, tried not to move her too much." Lena's fingers tested the pelvis with the lightest of rocks. The bones shifted more than they should have. Amanda's eyes squeezed shut. "Stop," she whispered. Lena pulled her hands back. "She has an unstable pelvis," she said. "She is hypotensive and tachycardic with no external bleed. She does not get to wait." She raised her voice. "I need a pelvic binder," she said. "Now. And when you put it on, it goes over the greater trochanters, not up on the iliac crests." An orderly grabbed a folded binder from a shelf already halfway toward the stretcher. "We always wrap it around the hips," he said. "That is why it slips," Lena replied. "Low and tight, underneath, then pull until it closes." Carla was at her side now, eyes on the monitor, then on Amanda's face. "Do it," Carla told the orderly. "Rios calls it, we follow it." He slid the binder under Amanda, aligning it by Lena's hands. The fabric rasped against the sheet. When he pulled the straps, there was a series of clicks as the fastenings caught, the pelvis compressed. Amanda let out a long, shaking breath, as if someone had finally closed a door that had been banging in the wind. The monitor blinked. The heart rate eased down a few beats. The blood pressure steadied, if only slightly. Lena looked at Carla. "Activate a massive transfusion protocol," she said. 1-to-1. I want a cooler moving this way. She needs blood more than she needs fluid now, and get a fast at the bedside. If she's bleeding into her abdomen along with her pelvis, we have to know. Carla spoke into the phone with crisp efficiency. Behind them, Mark stepped out of a bay where another patient lay, took in the binder, the cooler being called the focused motion around Amanda. What do we have, he asked. Unstable pelvic fracture, probable internal bleed hypotension, Lena said. Binder is on. MTP is starting. We are getting ultrasound. Mark watched the numbers on the monitor, then the binder sitting low and snug over Amanda's trochanters. He nodded once. Good, he said. Keep it moving. I will pull radiology for a slot and see if interventional can be ready if we find a leak we can plug. The room around them continued to seethe with motion, but for a moment the three of them stood in a small island of shared understanding. Then the noise surged back in and carried them onward. The rain had burned itself out by dawn. Gray light seeped through the narrow locker room window, turning the row of metal doors into a dull uniform line. The night shift had gone. Day shift had not yet flooded in. For a few minutes, the room belonged to the hum of the air vent and the soft buzz of the fluorescent strip overhead. Lena sat on the wooden bench, her scrubs folded beside her white coat hanging from a hook. Her hair was damp from a quick shower, dark strands curling at the nape of her neck. She reached into the top shelf of her locker and drew out a small metal box. It was the size of a paperback book, corners rounded lid scuffed from travel. When she opened it, the hinge gave a quiet click that seemed louder in the empty room. Inside, on a square of folded cloth, lay a faded patch. The fabric had once been black. Now it was a smoky gray with edges frayed to threads. A small emblem sat at its center, a bird with outstretched wings over a desert skyline. Curved words encircled it. Camp Nightingale Forward Surgical Unit. Beside the patch lay an identification card warped by heat. The plastic had curled away at one corner, exposing a thin slice of paper underneath. Her photograph was still visible, although smoke had grayed the edges of her face. She ran a thumb over the patch, feeling the rough stitching under her nail. For a moment, the locker room receded. The hum of the vent shifted into the remembered whine of generators strained to their limit. The fluorescent buzz became the echo of rotors across a dark sky. She placed the patch back in the box and closed the lid. It clicked again. The sound brought her fully back. The door swung open behind her. Lena turned. A young nurse whose badge read Miller Kate poked her head in one hand, still on the handle. Oh, Kate said. Sorry, I thought everyone was out. It is fine, Lena said. Kate stepped fully into the room. As she moved past, her eyes dropped to the bench. For a second, she caught sight of the box still resting on Lena's knees and the faint shape of the bird and words before Lena slid it into her locker. Nice patch, Kate said. Looks old. Just something I picked up on another job, Lena replied. Kate nodded, that curious pause and her gaze lingering. They are calling for you at the desk, she said. Carla said she wanted you for sign-out. Lena took her coat, shut the locker with a firm turn of the key, and followed her out. The door closed behind them, leaving the dim room empty again. By mid-morning, a different set of doors opened many floors above. The executive suite had carpets thick enough to muffle footsteps. Art hung on the walls, all desert landscapes and abstract shapes in muted colors. The air smelled faintly of coffee and printer toner instead of antiseptic. Meredith Sloan, the hospital's chief executive officer, sat behind a wide desk of dark wood. Her suit jacket hung on the back of her chair. She had rolled up her sleeves. A half-finished cup of coffee sat near her keyboard. Her assistant Tom stood in the doorway. This came in on the secure account, he said, holding up a printed page. Flagged priority from some military domain I do not recognize. Meredith held out her hand. The paper was heavier than copy stock, the text in a plain, precise font. At the top, the sender field contained a string of initials and abbreviations she did not bother to fully decode. Department of Defense was clear enough. Dear Administrator, request is hereby made to verify current employment status for Dr. Lena M. Rios, MD. Please confirm position, department, and dates of employment. This inquiry is part of a confidential personnel review. No further information is required at this time. Thank you for your cooperation. There was no signature. She recognized only a title and a general contact block. Meredith leaned back in her chair and read it again. What is her department? She asked. Emergency medicine, Tom said. New transfer. Phoenix was lucky to get her from what credentialing said. They were a little cagey about where she came from before the last facility in Texas. Has HR done the usual background check? Meredith asked. Yes, Tom replied. Clean as a whistle. License is all in order. Nothing about any ongoing military commitments. Meredith tapped the edge of the paper against her desk. Reply that she is active here in the emergency department, she said. Include her start date and that she's in good standing, nothing more. Then log the request and copy legal, just in case someone decides to make it complicated later. Tom nodded. Anything else? He asked. Call security, she said. Have them let me know if anyone in uniform starts asking for her by name. Tom's eyebrows lifted slightly, but he did not comment. Yes, ma'am, he said. He left. Meredith set the paper down beside her keyboard and picked up her coffee. It had gone cold. She set it aside and reached for the phone instead. Downstairs, the lobby had grown busier. Families moved through in uneven lines, some with balloons, some with flowers, some with nothing at all. The automatic doors opened and closed in a constant cycle, letting in hot air and snatches of traffic noise. At the security podium, Leon watched the flow with the steady gaze of someone who had seen most of what people brought through those doors. His radio crackled softly now and then. He checked badges, offered directions, answered questions. The outer doors slid open again. 3 men in Marine uniforms stepped in, their movements precise, in a way nothing in the lobby ever quite matched. Their boots made a soft sound on the polished floor. Their sleeves carried patches and stripes that spoke of rank and experience. The one in front had Staff Sergeant on his arm. His name tape read Brooks. The 2 behind him were a little younger posture, just as straight. Leon's hand moved automatically to the radio at his shoulder. Welcome, he said. You boys hurt. Not today, Brooks said. We are here to see a doctor. Dr. Lena Rios. He said the name with certainty as if he had practiced it. Leon weighed them for a moment. You have an appointment? He asked. Brooks shook his head. This is unofficial, he said. We were asked to make contact. It is important to our command. Leon's radio buzzed before he could answer. A dispatcher's voice reached his ear. Leon, this is upstairs, the voice said. If you have any military at the front asking for Dr. Rios, let Ms. Sloan know before you send them anywhere. He glanced at the 3 Marines. They waited without impatience, eyes taking in exits, hallway lines, camera positions. Leon pressed the transmit button. I have 3 Marines here asking for her. Now, he said quietly. 1 staff sergeant, 2 sergeants. They say it is unofficial. There was a pause on the other end. Then the answer came. Keep them there, the dispatcher said. Mrs. Sloan is on her way down. Leon clipped the radio back to his belt. All right, he said to Brooks. You picked a busy place to come without calling first. Give it a minute. Someone from upstairs wants a word. Brooks exchanged a glance with the Marines beside him, then nodded. We can wait, he said. They moved as a unit to one side of the lobby, out of the main flow, but still with a clear line of sight to the desk and the doors. None of them sat. Their hands stayed loose at their sides. Their eyes never fully rested. Leon watched them, recognizing something that had nothing to do with rank or uniform. Back in the emergency department, the rhythm had shifted back toward normal. The worst of the pileup had been sorted. Some patients were upstairs. Some had gone home. A few remained under observation. Lena sat at a computer, finishing notes from the night before. The glow of the screen lit her face. Her fingers moved with steady precision over the keys. Carla came up beside her with a fresh cup of coffee and set it down. You look like you are writing a novel, Carla said. Just trying to keep the sequence straight, Lena replied. The chart wants timestamps. The body did not move in lines this clean. Carla sipped from her own mug. Word is getting around, she said. People noticed what you did in Bay 4, and with the seatbelt chest, and with that older lady in 7 the other day. Medicine wrote a thank you in the chart. You bumped her before she tipped over. Lena gave a small shrug. Her lungs were already asking for help, she said. Most people do not listen that closely, Carla said. Or they are too busy trying to make sure the attending signs their orders. A call light blinked on the board. Someone else moved to answer it. The EMS radio snapped to life on the counter. Carla reached for it. St. Augustine, this is Rescue 3, a paramedic said. We have a male mid-50s construction site. Wall collapsed. Lower body trapped under debris for about 40 minutes. We freed him about 10 ago. He is conscious, complaining of leg pain pressure, still a little low despite fluids. We have a Foley in. Urine looks dark, almost brown. Carla looked at Lena. Lena did not wait this time. Start warming fluids, she said. Lots of them. Get blood ready in case his pressure does not respond. Tell them to keep talking to him, keep him awake. Once he gets here, we need compartment pressures in both legs as soon as possible. If they are high, surgery needs to see him immediately, not after the labs come back. Carla relayed the instructions into the radio. Copy on fluids and eyes on his pressure, the paramedic replied. We are about 10 out. Carla hung the handset back in its cradle. You want that one, she asked. I can help, Lena said. But someone else can put in the lines. They already know how. When Rescue 3 arrived, the man on the stretcher stared at the ceiling with wide, unfocused eyes. His pants had been cut to the knees. His lower legs bulged under the skin, taut and shiny. His toes had a faint blue cast. Janice moved in with a blood pressure cuff. A resident stepped up with an ultrasound, more out of habit than with a clear plan. Carla placed a hand on the man's arm. Sir, I am Carla, she said. You are at St. Augustine now. We are going to take care of you. He swallowed hard. Can I still walk, he asked. We are going to do everything we can to make sure you do, she said. She looked at the attending on duty for that side of the bay. It was not Mark this time, but Dr. Singh, a younger physician who had been on nights while Lena worked days. His urine is dark, Carla said. He was trapped almost an hour. I want labs, sure, but I'm getting orthopedics down here now for compartment checks. If those numbers are bad, I want them ready to open those legs before we lose the window. Dr. Singh nodded. Do it, he said, and start a second line. Let us get him ahead of the curve instead of chasing it. Carla turned to a tech. Warm fluids only, she said. Check his urine output every 15 minutes. If it stays like coffee, tell me. I do not care how busy we are. Her tone held an edge Lena recognized. It was the voice of someone who had seen what happened when you waited too long. Lena stood at the curtain watching. She saw the way the team moved a little faster, a little more certain because someone had already drawn the map. Janice caught her eye and lifted a hand in a small acknowledging wave. We listened, Janice said later when the crushed patient had gone upstairs with lines in place and ortho scrubbed in. You were right the first time. No harm in starting the fix before the numbers give us permission. Sometimes the numbers arrive late to the scene, Lena said. Just do not tell Mark we said that, Janice replied, half joking. Lena smiled faintly. Above them in the quiet hall outside the executive suite, Meredith walked toward the elevator, the DOD letter folded in her hand. Below in the lobby, 3 Marines waited with still shoulders and watchful eyes. Outside, the sky had cleared. Sunlight hit the windows of St. Augustine and threw sharp rectangles of light across the floor. In the emergency department, the glow from the monitors stayed constant, a different kind of weather that never quite changed. The desert heat pressed close to the glass. Late afternoon sun washed the emergency department waiting room in a flat, bright light that made everything look a little too sharp. The television mounted in one corner played a news channel on low volume. Most people ignored it. They leaned over, phones clutched paperwork, stared at their own reflections in the shiny floor. Lena stood at the vending machine near the back wall, a handful of change cupped in her palm. The machine hummed and clicked. Her reflection hovered faintly over the rows of snacks and sodas. She fed coins into the slot one by one. Each fell with a soft, hollow sound. When she pressed the button, the spiral turned and a bottle of water thumped into the tray. She reached down, finger-brushing cold plastic, when a sudden change in tone from the television pulled her eyes up. The anchor's voice had sharpened. Breaking news from outside Phoenix, he said. The words scrolled in red across the bottom of the screen. A convoy of United States Marines has been hit by an improvised explosive device near a training area north of the city. Casualties are being reported, but numbers remain unclear at this time. Local hospitals have been notified to prepare for possible mass casualty events. The image shifted to shaky aerial footage of desert scrub smoke rising in a black column from a scar in the earth. Vehicles lay at odd angles, their shapes broken and half obscured by haze. The fluorescent lights above hummed a little louder. For a breath, the vending machine's buzz melted into the remembered crack of distant artillery and the whine of incoming rounds. Lena's fingers tightened on the bottle until the plastic creaked. Behind her, the automatic doors hissed open. A family pushed a stroller inside, chatting softly. Their voices floated past and anchored her again. She picked up the water and walked back toward the staff entrance, her steps even. In the emergency department, Carla stood at the central desk with one hand on the base station radio and the other on the edge of the counter. A few others had turned their heads toward the same newsfeed, now mirrored on a small screen above the nurse's station. Mark came around the corner, flipping through a chart. What is that about Marines? He asked. Convoy hit north of the city, Carla said. IED. They have not called us officially yet, but that will not take long. Mark set the chart down and reached for the wall phone. Get me the house supervisor, he said. We need to know how many beds we actually have and how many we can pretend we have. Lena placed her water on the counter and slid behind Carla, scanning the board. The day had been busy, but not unbearable. 2 beds were empty. Others held patients stable enough to move if they could find space upstairs. The house supervisor answered. Carla listened, then mouthed numbers to Mark as he spoke. 6 open ICU beds, she said quietly. 4 in step-down. Med-surg is full, but they can push 2 to rehab if they have to. Mark nodded, jaw tight. All right, he said into the receiver. We need to clear anything that is not nailed down. Call upstairs. Tell them elective admissions stop now. Anyone who can be discharged goes home in the next hour. We are about to get a lot of green uniforms through this door. He hung up and turned to the staff. Until we know how many they are sending, assume it is more than we want, he said. Notify blood bank of a potential mass casualty. Get anesthesia surgery and radiology on alert. Pull extra stretchers from wherever they are hiding. The EMS base station crackled before he finished. St. Augustine, this is command, a voice said, clipped and calm. Be advised, explosive device has impacted a Marine convoy approximately 30 miles north of your location. Expect multiple casualties. Initial estimate, 6 to 8 critical additional walking wounded. Evac in progress. Your designated primary receiving facility. Carla pressed the transmit button. Copy command, she said. St. Augustine, preparing for mass casualty. Can you provide estimated time to first arrival? First ground units, 15 minutes, command answered. Possible air evac to your helipad if required. We will update as we sort and send. Carla hung the mic back and exhaled. Full MCI activation, she said to Mark. He nodded. All right, he said. Everyone listens. From this minute, we are in mass casualty mode. We do not get lost on single patients. We think in groups. Carla grabbed the laminated MCI protocol from a holder on the wall and slapped it onto the counter. Start triage, she said. Simple rapid breathing circulation, mental status. Green, yellow, red, black. We tag and move. No one deviates because they like their way better. Got it. A murmur of assent moved through to the room. From the far side of the bay, a resident raised a hesitant hand. What about rank, he asked. These are Marines. If we get a general and a private at the same time, how do we handle that? The room went a shade quieter. Mark opened his mouth, then closed it. His eyes went to the television where a commentator was already speculating about high-profile casualties. Carla's gaze shifted to Lena before she answered. We treat the body in front of us, not the bars on the shoulder, Carla said. Red means red, yellow means yellow. No special colors. She said it firmly. Still, the question hung in the air. Lena looked at the triage tags in the box by her hand, thin cards with bright stripes. She had seen their equivalents in other places printed in different languages, stained with sand. The protocol does not care about rank, Lena said quietly. If we start caring about it, we will lose more than we need to. Her voice was not loud, but it carried. Mark rubbed a thumb over the edge of his cup. Fine, he said. Start triage. Red, yellow, green, black. No gold stars. But I am not going to pretend the press and the brass will not be breathing down our necks if someone important rolls in. We will let them breathe, Carla said, as long as our patients still can. The staff moved. Curtains were pulled and beds shifted. 2 stable patients were wheeled toward the inpatient elevators with hurried instructions and half-finished discharge packets. Housekeeping came with fresh linens, tossing used sheets into carts at a pace that matched the rising noise. Lena cleared a work table, wiping it down until the steel shone. She lined up trauma shears, trauma tourniquets, syringes, and tape. Pelvic binders, IO kits, and airway tools appeared beside them. She felt the familiar hum under her skin, the one that came when chaos approached. It was not excitement. It was a leveling, a narrowing, a sense that the air had thickened and her thoughts had sharpened into clear tracks. At the edge of the department, a side door opened. Meredith Sloan stepped through, her usual calm trimmed by a thin line of strain between her brows. She scanned the room, taking in the activity, then walked straight to Carla and Mark. I just got off a call with the regional office and a colonel from the base, she said. The media already know about the convoy. They do not have details, but they will. We need to be ready to keep cameras out of this area. Security is putting extra staff at the entrances. We will keep them out of the trauma bays, Mark said. You keep them off my neck. Meredith nodded and lowered her voice slightly. Do we know who's in that convoy, she asked. Command did not say, Carla replied. Only that we are primary for the worst of it. Meredith's gaze flicked to Lena. And our Dr. Rios, she asked. Working, Carla said. Lena lifted her chin slightly. I will be at triage, and in whichever bay needs another brain, she said. We can keep the line moving if we do not get tangled. Meredith studied her for a moment, eyes searching Lena's face, as if the DOD letter might be written there. If someone high-profile comes in, there may be direct requests about who touches them, Meredith said. I will try to keep command outside the clinical circle, but there are politics I cannot stop. Politics can stand in the hall, Lena said. They do not get a hand on the patient. Meredith held her gaze for a heartbeat, then gave a short nod. Do what you have to do, she said. I'm going back upstairs to keep the rest of this place from spinning apart. She left as quickly as she had come. The first siren grew in the distance, a rising wail that reached the bones before the ears. Others followed, overlapping, fighting with the regular city noise, and winning. Carla clipped the triage tags to her belt. She checked the radio on her shoulder and the watch on her wrist. All right, she called. Positions. Mark took his place near the main trauma bays. Residents and nurses formed teams, each cluster assigned a room and a role. You will take airway over there. Mark pointed to one of the senior residents. You handle lines in Bay 3 and 4. Somebody stay free enough to run to CT when we can. Lena moved toward the ambulance entrance with Carla. The doors ahead were glass, the outside bright and hard. Inside, the light felt cooler, the overheads flicking slightly as if already strained. At the triage station near the doors, Carla laid out a row of tags and uncapped a black marker. Rios, you are with incoming, she said. You hear their report, you see their face, you tag them. Red, yellow, green, black. No apologies for the cards you pick. Lena slid on a pair of gloves, flexing her fingers into the latex. The sound snapped against her skin, quick and decisive. She looked at the empty bay on the other side of the glass, then at Carla. Simple as that, Lena said. Carla gave a tight smile. Simple does not mean easy, she answered. The first ambulance backed into the bay. Its engine rumbled through the glass. The doors swung open, and the paramedics appeared, their faces set with the focus of people who had already done the first hard part. They rolled in a stretcher, draped in cake dust and streaks of dried blood. A man in dirty camouflage lay on it, his eyes half open, mouth dry. A tourniquet sat high on his thigh, the strap dark with what it had stopped. As the stretcher's wheels crossed the threshold, the cool air of the hospital met the heat and grit of the desert outside. The smell of burned rubber and explosive residue slid under the door with them. St. Augustine, this is our first, the lead medic said, pushing the gurney toward the triage line. Staff sergeant, mid-30s, blast injury left leg, partial amputation, tourniquet in place, hypotensive, but talking. We gave 2 units in the field. He needs more. Lena stepped up, stethoscope, already looped around her neck. Her eyes took in the color of his skin, the line of sweat on his brow, the way his chest rose. She placed 2 fingers on his wrist. The pulse was rapid, thin. His lips moved. Ma'am, he said, voice cracked. You sound like my last duty station. Where was that, she asked. Somewhere hot, he said. A hint of a smile ghosted across his mouth, then faded. She tagged him red and handed the stretcher toward the waiting team that peeled off down the hall. More sirens approached. More engines rumbled in the bay. Lena wiped her fingers on her gown, reached for the next tag, and turned toward the opening doors. The second ambulance backed into the bay before the first stretcher had cleared the corner. Heat and exhaust washed through the open doors. Lena wiped a line of dust from her cheek with the back of her wrist and stepped up as the next gurney rolled in. Male, late 20s, the medic called. Blast wave. No obvious penetration. Short of breath. Pressure hanging in the low 90s. Heart rate 130. GCS 14 a little out of it. The Marine on the stretcher stared straight up, blinking slow. A smear of soot striped his forehead. His chest rose in quick, shallow pulls. The monitor clipped to the side of the stretcher, beeped in a nervous staccato. Lena leaned close enough to see the tremor in his nostrils. Can you tell me your name, she asked. He frowned in concentration. Jared, he said. Corporal, I think. His voice caught at the end. She listened once to his lungs. Air moved on both sides, thin, but present. His abdomen was soft. No visible bleeding. She pressed the back of her hand to his skin. Warm, dry. Yellow for now. Watch him closely. She looped a yellow tag around his wrist and signaled toward the holding bay. Bay 5 yellow, Carla called, directing the stretcher. The third ambulance arrived before Jared reached his room. The medic who jumped down this time had a tighter jaw. His gloves were streaked with something dark. St. Augustine, incoming priority, he said, not bothering with the radio. Male, mid-50s, high rank. Blast with possible blunt chest trauma. Difficulty breathing, hypotensive, distended neck veins. Heart sounds muffled in the field. We are losing his pressure, even with fluids. He swung the doors wide. The man on the stretcher wore a torn camouflage uniform, the name tape dirty but legible. Cole. His face was pale under the grime. Jaw-set lips tinged with blue. A medic had cut his blouse open to the sternum. Electrodes clung to his chest. The monitor showed a narrow, complex rhythm in the 40s. His blood pressure reading flickered low numbers, fighting to hold. His eyes opened as they hit the cooler air of the trauma bay. They were clear if glazed with pain, and they went straight to the ceiling tiles, then to the faces above him, reading stripes and badges with a practiced scan. Lena felt her own heartbeat slow as she took him in. Distended neck veins, labored breath, faint heart tones under the noise. A tightness behind her ribs that had nothing to do with fear. She stepped up to the stretcher. Sir, she said, I am Dr. Rios. You are at St. Augustine. He turned his head slightly toward her voice. The movement took effort. Marines, he said. The word rasped. Convoy. Hit hard. His hand twitched as if searching for something to grip. Lena slid her fingers to his neck, feeling for a carotid pulse. It was thready and slow. His skin felt cool despite the heat that still clung to his clothes. She looked at his chest again. Each breath came with work. The space between his ribs tugged in. There was a fullness around the heart on palpation, a sense of pressure that did not belong. Neck veins are distended, she said loud enough for Carla and Mark to hear. Hypotension. Muffled heart sounds. We have a problem around his heart. Carla's eyes widened. She knew the triad as well as Lena did. Mark appeared at Lena's shoulder, still tugging on a pair of gloves. What have we got, he asked. Brigadier General Nathan Cole, the medic said quickly. Commanding officer on the ground. We had to pry him out of what was left of the lead vehicle. No penetrating chest wound we could see. He started dropping pressure on the ride. The word general landed with weight. For a heartbeat, the room leaned toward the rank, not the man. Mark's gaze flicked to the name tape, then to the medic. Get him to Bay 1, Mark said. All eyes up. He is top priority. Lena kept her hand on Cole's neck. He is red, she agreed. But so is the kid in the other bay with one leg. We only have so much space. Carla glanced toward the other reds, then back at Lena. Start still applies, Lena said. Red for those who will die without help right now. Yellow for those who can wait a breath or two. It does not change because someone has more stars. Mark shot her a look. If we lose a general in our care, there will be more than stars involved, he said. There will be calls and hearings and names in the paper. If we let someone else bleed out while we polish him for the cameras, there will be bodies on our conscience, Lena replied. They stood there for a heartbeat, words hanging between them, while the monitor at Cole's side complained in slow, insistent beeps. Carla broke the moment. Both are red, she said. We split teams. Singh maintains the amputee in 3. Ellison and Rios take the chest in 1. Everyone else follows triage. No one recolors tags without coming through me. Her tone brooked no argument. Mark exhaled sharp but controlled. Fine, he said. Bay 1, move. They wheeled Cole toward the open trauma room. As they rolled, his hand shifted off the sheet. His fingers grazed Lena's wrist. The touch was light, but deliberate. Rios, he whispered. She bent closer so he would not have to force the air. Yes. You were at Nightingale, he said. It was not a question. The fluorescent light flickered across his face. For a split second, his eyes were as clear as the day. Lena saw a different sky over him then. Black instead of white, lit by flares instead of bulbs, a tent roof instead of acoustic tiles. She pulled herself back. Save your breath, sir, she said. You need it. They swung the stretcher into Bay 1. Overhead lights flared brighter, monitors chirped. Nurses moved in on reflex, attaching lines, hanging fluids, placing oxygen. One of the figures that slipped in behind the stretcher did not wear hospital colors. Staff Sergeant Brooks had left the lobby the moment the first siren from the convoy screamed by. He had not asked permission. The jungle of corridors and stairs between the ground floor and the emergency department had not slowed him much. Now he stood just inside the curtain, uniform dusty boots, leaving faint prints on the clean floor. He took in the scene, eyes traveling over the equipment, the staff, the man on the bed. Cole saw him. Staff Sergeant Cole said softly, You made it. Brooks moved closer, stopping short of the sterile field. Just following the noise, sir, he said. His gaze flicked to Lena. For a heartbeat, his face changed. I know you, he said, quiet enough that only she and Carla heard. Camp Nightingale. You pulled me off a table once. Power out. Dust in the air. Smelled like burned rubber and metal. Lena remembered a different staff sergeant, a leg torn open, a face caked with grit, his hand gripping the edge of a cot until his knuckles shone white. The memory pushed at her, then settled. Good to see you upright, she said simply. Brooks nodded once, nothing more. On the monitor, Cole's heart rate dipped into the high 30s. His blood pressure reading sank again. Jugular veins are still up, Lena said. Heart sounds are soft. He is not just dry. This fits tamponade. Mark listened himself, his stethoscope pressed to Cole's chest. He frowned. Hard to tell in this noise, he said. He is hypotensive, sure. Could be just volume loss from somewhere we have not seen yet. We lift his pressure with volume. We risk pushing the heart harder against the fluid, Lena said. He is already choking in his own pericardium. We have not got imaging, Mark said. Pericardiocentesis blind in a chest like this. That is not nothing. We have ultrasound, Lena countered. Handheld, sub-cephoid view. We can see the effusion and guide the needle. Mark hesitated. His hand hovered near the ultrasound cart. Brooks looked between them and the general on the bed. Sir, he said to Cole. They are trying to figure out who gets to stick you with the big needle. Cole's mouth twitched. Let the one who has done it in the dark do it in the light, he said. Mark's eyes went to Lena. You have done this before, he asked. Her answer stayed steady. In a tent, in a blackout, with a headlamp and a lot less help than this, she said. Carla stepped into his line of sight. She knows what she's looking at, Carla said. We can lose time arguing or we can prep the field. Mark looked at the monitor again. The numbers continued their slow slide. He nodded once, short and sharp. All right, he said. Rios leads the tap. I stay on airway and support. We document that we did what we had to do. He raised his voice slightly. I want everyone quiet once we start, he said. No side conversations, no debating. We give her a clear field. Carla flipped the ultrasound machine on. Lena pulled the cart close and squeezed gel onto the probe. Her hands moved without rush, but nothing wasted. She placed the probe just below the xiphoid process and angled it toward Cole's left shoulder. The screen bloomed with grainy black and gray. The heart shuddered in the center of the image, its beats shallow. Around it, a dark crescent hugged the muscle wider than it should have been. There, Lena said. We have fluid, enough to cause trouble. She marked the angle in her mind. The anatomy mapped itself under her fingers. liver, diaphragm, the thin space where needle and pericardium would meet. She set the probe aside long enough to clean the skin. Betadine spread in quick, careful circles over the upper abdomen. A sterile drape went down. The air in the room seemed to thin and stretch. "Everyone quiet now," Carla said. "From here, she needs 90 seconds of air and no noise." Conversations died. The suck of suction, the beep of other monitors outside the room, the shuffle of shoes all faded to a background hum. Lena took a long, slow breath, feeling for the steadiness in her own chest. She picked up the needle, attached to the pericardiocentesis catheter. Her left hand rested on the xiphoid notch fingers, tracing the path she would follow. Her right hand brought the needle to the skin just below her fingers. She slid the ultrasound probe back into her left palm, balancing it, so that the screen showed the heart and the dark pocket again. "Subxiphoid approach," she said quietly. "Angle toward the left shoulder. Stay close to the posterior surface of the sternum. Avoid the coronary vessels." No one answered. They just watched. She advanced the needle in small, controlled movements. The tip appeared on the screen as a bright point moving toward the black crescent. She aspirated gently as she went, maintaining a light pressure on the plunger. There was resistance at first, then a subtle change, a soft give like breaking the surface of a sealed bag. The plunger drew back easily. Dark, non-clotting blood slid into the barrel. On the monitor, the rhythm climbed out of the 30s into the 40s, then the 50s. The waveform filled out less pinched. Lena held the needle steady. "Securing position," she murmured. "We drain enough to relieve the pressure, not enough to chase perfection." She connected the catheter, slid the needle out, and taped the line in place. A small collection bag hung at the bedside, slowly filling with the dark fluid that no longer strangled the heart. Cole's color shifted, a faint flush returning to his cheeks. His next breath looked less like a battle and more like work. Brooks let out a breath he had not realized he was holding. "There it is," he said softly. Mark watched the monitors as if waiting for them to take it back. They did not. The blood pressure reading climbed into a range that felt less like a cliff and more like a hill. Lena kept the ultrasound probe trained on the heart, watching for reaccumulation. The dark rim shrank, though it did not vanish. "We will need to get him to the OR for a definitive fix," she said. "This will not hold forever, but it gives him a road to walk on." Cole turned his head slightly toward her. His eyes were clearer now, though still tired. "Dr. Rios," he said, voice low but steady. "You manage to find trouble in every desert you visit." "Or it finds me," she replied. He gave a small huff that might have been a laugh. Brooks leaned closer to him. "Sir," he said, "I should tell you something while you are still listening. Command is upstairs talking about you. They may want to pick who touches you from here on out." Cole's lips thinned. "They can pick my replacement," he said. "They do not pick my doctor. You tell whoever's in charge that Dr. Lena Rios is to be treated as consulting lead for my case. The hospital keeps its authority. She keeps my trust." Carla absorbed the words with a slight nod. "I will document that," she said. "In ink." She stepped toward the door. "Singh," she called into the hall. "Get surgery on the line. We have a general who needs a pericardial window before his luck changes." In Bay 3, the young Marine with the missing leg cried out as someone adjusted a dressing. In Bay 5, the corporal with the blast wave coughed and asked for water he could not yet have. In Bay 1, the air settled into a new rhythm, defined by a steadier beep and the quiet movements of people who had just turned a corner and knew it. By the time the last ambulance pulled away, the desert sky outside had gone deep and quiet. The emergency department did not follow suit. It shifted into a different kind of noise, lower and uneven. The sharp commands of the mass casualty had thinned into the softer sounds of charting of low voices, of the occasional laugh that came more from exhaustion than humor. In Bay 1, Brigadier General Nathan Cole was already on his way upstairs. Surgery had swept him out between a line of fluorescent lights that turned his stretcher into a moving island. The catheter from the pericardiocentesis still hung at his side, draining slowly into a bag that swayed with the motion. Lena stood at the sink, scrubbing dried gel and a faint ring of betadine from her hands. The water ran hot over her skin. She watched it change color where it carried away the last traces of the procedure. Behind her, Mark leaned against the counter, mask untied and hanging around his neck. His hair was flattened on one side where a cap had sat for hours. Lines at the corners of his eyes had deepened. "You did not miss," he said. Lena dried her hands on a towel, folding the edges in carefully. "We had a clear pocket," she said. "The heart gave us a target." "That was more than a target," Mark replied. "That was threading a needle in a moving car." He let the words rest there, not quite an apology, not quite praise, something in between. She tossed the towel into the bin. The fabric landed with a soft thud. "The mass casualty is not over," she said. "The ones who are alive still have a long road." He looked past her toward the hall where the stretcher had disappeared. "Some of them do," he said. "Some will not remember tonight. Some will remember every minute." He drew in a breath and let it out slowly. "You have done this before," he said. It was not a question. Yes, she said, in other places. He studied her face as if he might catch a glimpse of those places in the set of her jaw or the scars on her knuckles. Finding nothing he understood, he pushed away from the counter. I'm going to check on the amputee in 3, he said. See what surgery has decided. Try to convince them to leave something for rehab to work with. He paused in the doorway. Rios, he added, when this settles, we should talk about putting some of what is in your head into actual protocol before the next convoy finds another road. She nodded once. I will be here, she said. He left the curtains swishing shut behind him. The night staff filtered in faces fresh but wary once they heard the word convoy. Carla stood at the board, handing off to the incoming charge nurse, her voice steady as she ran through bed bays, colors, pending scans, and who still needed to go upstairs. Lena finished her notes and stepped out of the bay. The corridor outside hummed less loudly now. A patient coughed somewhere down the hall. A monitor alarm chirped once and was silenced. She checked the time. Hours had slid past in a way that made them feel like one long breath taken too deep. Dr. Rios. The voice came from behind her. She turned. Meredith Sloan stood near the door to the staff lounge. Her jacket was back on. The thin line between her brows had not gone away. You have a minute? Meredith asked. Lena glanced at the board. Carla caught her eye and gave a small nod. Go, Carla said. We will call if something tips. Lena followed Meredith up the back stairwell. The air cooled a degree with each floor they climbed. At the executive level, the carpeting swallowed their footsteps again. Meredith led her into a small conference room with a long table and a view of the parking lot. The glass reflected the interior lights more than it showed the outside. Stacks of paper sat neatly arranged at one end. A carafe of coffee stood next to a row of cups. 2 men already waited at the table. One wore a navy uniform, dark and pressed with silver leaves on his collar. The other wore a civilian suit with a pin on the lapel that Lena recognized as some flavor of Defense Department. They stood when she entered. Dr. Rios, Meredith said, Thank you for coming up. This is Captain Miller, United States Navy Medical Corps, and Mr. Harker, Department of Defense Liaison. Lena noted the way the Navy captain's eyes took in the room, the same way Brooks had looked at the emergency department. Exits cover potential obstacles. Habit did not care about uniforms. Ma'am, Miller said, extending his hand. His grip was firm, but not crushing. We have heard a great deal about you in a very short time. I imagine you have other things to talk about tonight, Lena said. We do, Harker replied. Most of them have your name in them. He gestured to a chair. Please, he said, sit. Lena took a seat where she could see the door and the window at once. Old preferences stayed with her. Miller opened a folder. Inside pages bore the same kind of precise text as the earlier DOD letter, only more of it. A small metal pen lay across the topmost page. When he picked it up, it made a quiet click. Dr. Rios, he said, I will be direct. Your work at Camp Nightingale reached certain desks. What you did there saved lives that would otherwise have been lost. Today you repeated that level of care under civilian pressure on home soil with one of our general officers. His words did not carry praise so much as a factual accounting. The Department of Defense considers you a national asset, he continued. We are prepared to offer you a direct commission as a lieutenant commander in the United States Navy Medical Corps. That would place you formally in the pipeline that supports Marine units. You would have rank resources and the authority to shape field surgical doctrine in a way few people ever do. He slid a single sheet toward her. The paper had a weight that went beyond its thickness. Lena looked at it. The words were formal, the language neat, the offer was clear. Would this be full-time, she asked. Yes, Harker said. You would rotate between training environments and deployed settings. You would not be tied permanently to one base, but your expertise would go where it is most needed. Some of that may be in theaters you are already familiar with. Some of it may be elsewhere. He studied her face. You have shown you thrive in that environment, he said. She let the silence stretch for a breath. At Camp Nightingale, she said we used to lose power any time the generator coughed. Dust got into the vents, into the instruments, into our teeth. We worked by flashlight and touch more often than not. We moved chest tubes and tourniquets through air that tasted like burned bone. Miller nodded. I read the reports, he said. The reports do not tell you how it felt when the rotors climbed away and the ground kept shaking anyway, Lena said. They do not tell you how the quiet sounded when the last helicopter left, and you did not know if any more were coming. She touched the edge of the paper lightly. How many wars does a person get? She asked more to herself than to them. As many as they are willing to fight, Harker said. And as many as their skills demand. Meredith watched her eyes unreadable. You are not under obligation, Meredith said quietly. From the hospital's perspective, this is your decision. You have privileges here. Your work is valued. We would prefer not to lose you. But if you choose to go where they are asking you to go, we will not stand in your way. Lena thought of the helipad, of the way the wind from the blades pushed against her chest. She thought of the boy in Bay 5 whose lungs had held of the man with the crushed legs whose future now depended on blades and rehab of the general who had just traded one kind of battlefield for another. She also thought of the small apartment with its concrete floor, of the 3 pairs of shoes lined up of the metal box on the shelf with its faded patch. War had my name for a long time, she said. It wrote it on sand and concrete and medical tents. Tonight it tried to write it again on your paper. She slid the offer back across the table, careful, almost gentle. I will not be signing, she said. Miller's jaw flexed once. Harker blinked, surprised, but not shocked. May I ask why, Miller said. Because there are enough deserts, she said. Because my hands know how to work in the dark, and this hospital has plenty of its own. Because someone needs to stand between these people and whatever decides to hit them next without shipping out every time the wind shifts. Her gaze did not waver. I want to keep them breathing here, she said. In this building, in this city, where the people who bring them in might actually see them walk out again. Miller held her eyes for a moment, then placed the pen back in the folder. It clicked softly against the paper. Understood, he said. Declining does not erase what you have done for us. It may not stop us from calling you from time to time for advice. You can call, she said. I have a phone. I know how to answer it. Harker gave a small, dry smile at that. Meredith stood. Thank you for considering it, she said. And thank you for what you did today. Lena rose. I was doing my job, she said. Outside the glass, the parking lot lights had come on, casting pools of yellow over rows of cars. A helicopter shape crossed briefly through the reflection, distant and low, its blades turning in slow rhythm. When Lena stepped back into the elevator, she felt the shift in pressure as it descended the familiar drop in her stomach. The doors opened to the hum of the emergency department. The air was warmer here, heavy with disinfectant, and the faint iron scent that never quite left. She walked past Bay 1. The bed had fresh sheets. New monitors waited quiet. The space where Cole had been now held only the echo of his shallow breathing and the memory of a moving needle. In Bay 3, the young Marine who had lost his leg lay with his head turned toward the ceiling, eyes open on the cusp between exhaustion and something harder. A nurse adjusted a drip. Janice checked the dressing hand's gentle voice low. Lena did not go in. She watched for a second from the doorway, then moved on. At the central desk, Carla held a chart in one hand and a cup of coffee in the other. She looked up as Lena approached. How was the altitude? Carla asked. Thin air, Lena said. A lot of paper, some heavy pens. Did they want you back? Carla asked. Yes, Lena said. And I said no. Carla studied her. You are sure? She asked. Lena looked around at the bays, at the staff bent over charts, at the glow of monitors, at the doors that would keep opening. Yes, she said, I am sure. Carla nodded once satisfied. Good, she said. We have enough people who leave. It is nice to have one who stays on purpose. A transport tech rolled a stretcher past its metal rails, clinking in a rhythm that sounded almost like a distant rotor, only softer. Lena reached for a stack of blank forms. The paper gave under her fingers with a faint crackle. The pen in the holder clicked when she picked it up. She leaned over the counter and began to write the lines of ink forming a different sort of record, one that belonged to this building, to this shift, to this particular stretch of night. The memo went up on a Thursday. It was a single sheet of paper taped beside the trauma bay whiteboard, printed in plain black letters. Viper Protocol, Trauma Simulation, and Rapid Response Training. Someone had drawn a small snake in the corner with a Sharpie. Its tongue flicked toward the edge of the page, more amused than menacing. Lena stood in front of it with a cup of stale coffee cooling in her hand. The hallway buzzed lightly around her. Stretchers rolled past. A transporter pushed a wheelchair. The overhead speaker called visiting hours for another floor. Behind her, Mark cleared his throat. Catchy name, he said. It was yours, she replied. He came to stand beside her, looking at the paper, as if he were reading it for the first time, even though she had watched him edit the wording earlier that morning in the cramped office off the staff lounge. I liked the sound of something that struck fast, he said. And I'm not above stealing from a Marine Company call sign if it gets people to show up. He took a sip from his own cup, then lowered it. They listened when you spoke during the convoy, he said. They moved because you moved. We cannot rely on firefights to train people. We have drills, Lena said. We have fire drills, Mark answered. We have disaster binders with dust on them. We do not have people practicing the way you put a binder on in 3 seconds while someone screams in their ear. Not yet. He tipped his head toward the schedule posted beside the memo. First session is tonight, he said. After the day shift leaves and before the night shift gets too buried. You are leading it. I am there as your student. His mouth twitched. Try not to enjoy that part too much, he added. She watched his face. The easy arrogance that had wrapped his words when she first arrived was thinner, now worn down by shared nights, and the realization that textbooks did not keep blood inside a body on their own. We will need more than one session, she said. He nodded. We will run it every week, he said. Rotate people through. Nurses, residents, respiratory, whoever puts their hands on a trauma patient. Carla has already bribed them with pizza. That last detail sounded like Carla. Lena touched the edge of the memo. The paper fluttered slightly under her finger, alive with air. Noise, she said. Mark glanced at her. We need noise, she said. Drills in silence teach you how to move your hands. They do not teach you how to think when you cannot hear your own voice. We can fix that, Mark said. Maintenance owes me a favor. I can find speakers. He paused. Any other requests since we are raiding the supply closet? He asked. Flashlights, she said, and duct tape. That earned a short laugh. You and your love of the dark, he said. Sometimes the power goes out, she replied. Might as well practice where it is likely to hurt. The first Viper session started after sunset. Carla pulled the curtains around Bay 2 until they overlapped, sealing off most of the light from the hall. A portable speaker sat on a rolling cart with a cheap MP3 player plugged into it. The wire hummed faintly. Janice stood near the head of the bed, arms crossed, eyes skeptical, but curious. Two residents in rumpled scrubs leaned against the wall, trying to look more awake than they were. A respiratory therapist, perched on a stool, spinning it lightly with one foot. A tech checked the I/O drill, the small handheld device, clicking once as he squeezed the trigger, experimentally. The air smelled of vinyl and cleaning fluid. An empty mannequin lay on the bed, plastic skin pale chest still. Mark clapped his hands once. All right, he said. Welcome to Viper. Rios is the one with the war stories, so she gets to run the show. I am here to learn and to make sure nobody drills into their own hand. A faint ripple of laughter spread through the group. Lena stepped forward, the beam of a small flashlight in her hand. This is not about making you comfortable, she said. It is about making your brains and hands get used to finding the right thing when everything around you is wrong. Noise, bad light, too many patients, not enough time. She gestured at the mannequin. Tonight, this is your patient, she said. He will not complain if you fumble. The real ones will. Carla dimmed the overhead lights. The room went from bright to washed gray. Shadows climbed the walls. Lena clicked the flashlight on and off, testing the beam. We will run short scenarios, she said, each one with a clear problem. Your job is to see it, speak it, and fix it, out loud. We speak in closed loops. You say what you are doing so no one guesses. She nodded at Carla. Noise, she said. Carla hit play. Helicopter blades filled the room, a recorded thump that built and built until it seemed the walls might shake. Underneath, someone had layered radio chatter, static, the distant pop of training explosions. None of it was real, but all of it felt too familiar. Janice lifted her eyebrows. Subtle, she said. Life is not subtle, Lena replied. She moved to the bedside flashlight beam, tracing a path from the mannequin's face to its chest. First scenario, she said. You walk in. The room sounds like this. Your patient is breathing fast, chest rising uneven. What do you see? One of the residents stepped forward, voice raised a little to cut through the recorded noise. Unequal chest rise, he said. Possible pneumothorax, maybe tension if the pressure builds. Show me, Lena said. He placed his hands on the mannequin's chest, feeling along the ribs. He reached for the stethoscope around his neck, then paused. The helicopter blades thundered in his ears. Lena shook her head. You will not hear breath sounds over this, she said. You will feel more than you hear. You have your eyes, your hands, the monitor. Use them. The resident nodded, swallowing. Okay, he said. Hypotension, tachycardia, unilateral chest rise. I am calling tension pneumothorax. I need a needle decompression kit. 14-gauge right side, 4th or 5th intercostal space, anterior to mid-axillary line. His voice steadied as he spoke. Janice moved to the instrument tray, hands searching. The layout matched the pattern Lena had set. Needle clamp, suture, tubing. Her fingers found the catheter on the first try. She slapped it into his palm. Timer, Carla called. The tech hit the stopwatch. The resident landmarked the space cleaned. The skin advanced the needle. The I/O drill whirred once on the counter, an accidental bump. The resident flinched. Focus, Lena said. The noise is not talking to you. Your patient is. He finished the procedure. The tech called out the time. 28 seconds, he said. Satisfactory, Lena said. We can shave it down. You did not chase the stethoscope. Good. Next. She clicked the flashlight off. The room dropped into near darkness, lit only by the leaking light from the hallway around the curtain edges and the green glow of monitors. Several people sucked in a breath. This is not optional, she said. Power fails. Batteries die. Generators cough. You do not stop because the lights decided they are done. She handed the flashlight to Mark. Your turn, she said. You hold the light. They work. He took it without protest. The next scenario unfolded with the patient as a pale construction worker with a suspected pelvic fracture. The background noise shifted to distant traffic, shouting the occasional screech of brakes. Lena narrated quickly. Midline tenderness, she said. Hypotensive. No obvious external bleed. A resident reached for the pelvis, ready to rock it hard. Lena caught his wrist. No, she said. If it is unstable, you do not keep testing it. Once is enough. Binder, now. Janice grabbed the binder from the shelf. Where do you put it? Lena asked. Over the hips, the resident said automatically, hands already moving. Which part of the hips? She asked. He hesitated. The top, he said. Wrong, she replied. That is why they slide up. Trochanters. Here. She guided his hands lower to the bony points high on the thighs. The binder wrapped the Velcro strips, catching with a series of sharp clicks. Feel that, she said. That is the sound of closing a door on blood loss. The heart rate on the monitor programmed for the drill slowed slightly. The blood pressure number stabilized a fraction. Even knowing it was artificial, the room relaxed by a degree. Massive transfusion protocol, she said. Who calls it? I do, Carla answered. She stepped to the pretend phone and recited the order voice, crisp. Activate MTP for Bay 2, she said. 1-to-1 packed cells and plasma platelets as available. Assign cooler runner and scribe. The respiratory therapist pointed at herself. I will run the cooler, she said. Good, Lena said. And you, Janice, you write. Names times units. No order goes into the air without landing on that page. They went through I/O access next. The tech demonstrated on a training leg skin made of rubber, but resistant enough. The first attempt wobbled. He corrected, set his weight, and drilled. The device whirred, then clicked as it seated in the simulated bone. Under 10 seconds from decision to flow, Lena said, You do not poke at collapsed veins while someone's pressure slides away. Mark held the flashlight steady beam, tracking hands, not faces. He listened more than he spoke. When he did ask a question, it was pointed. What do you say out loud when you're about to push that I/O, he asked. That I have confirmed placement, the tech replied. No swelling at the site, flush, goes an easy limb, is clean. And you tell them what you are hanging, Lena added. So nobody thinks clear equals harmless. They moved through scenario after scenario, airway in a roaring room, fast exam with siren sounds layered over the ultrasound hum, temperature control when the air conditioning in the drill space had been turned down just enough to make fingertips stiff. On the third run, Mark stepped into the role of primary on the mannequin. Carla cranked the noise higher. The recorded rotor wash filled the bay. Someone knocked a tray over on purpose. Instruments clattered a sharp cascade of metal. The mannequin's programmed monitor beeped irregularly. The numbers on the screen dropped and flickered. Mark's hands stilled for a fraction too long as the tray fell. Talk us through it, Lena said. He drew in a breath, shoulders tightening, then made his voice cut through the noise. Unstable pelvis with hypotension, he said. Binder is on. I am calling MTP. Rios, get the fast. Carla, get access I/O if you have to. Janice, you are my scribe. Nothing happens that you do not write down. There was no sarcasm in his tone when he gave her orders, only trust that she would fill the space in the way it needed. She slid the ultrasound probe over the mannequin's abdomen. The screen showed a preloaded image, a black pocket near the liver. Free fluid in Morrison's pouch, she said. We have intra-abdominal bleed. He needs IR or an OR, probably both. Radiology, Mark said. We need a slot now. He glanced at the clock, then at the board, taped to the wall with the mock assignments. When we do this for real, he said to the room, I want us to sound like this. Loud where it matters, quiet where it does not. No one guessing. Anyone sees something off, they say it. He looked at Lena. I missed the pause when that tray fell, he said. I let the noise pull me for a second. You came back, she said. That is the point. The pause shrinks the more you see this. The session ran longer than they had planned. No one noticed. When Carla finally killed the noise and flipped the overhead lights back to full, the group squinted as if stepping out into sun. For a few seconds, the absence of rotor wash and shouted reports felt almost as loud as the drill had. Janice stretched her shoulders. Not bad for a mannequin, she said. He complains less than some of the people we get. The residents laughed, the sound loose edges softened by tiredness. Carla gathered the used syringes and tossed them into the sharps container. The lid shut with a solid click. We will do it again next week, she said. Same time, different scenarios, nobody is exempt. If you touch a trauma patient, you get a turn. On their way out, one of the interns lingered by Lena. I thought I knew how to put on a pelvic binder, he said. I have been doing it wrong since med school. You were doing it the way you were taught, she said. Now you know another way. Your hands will remember if you make them practice. He nodded, expression thoughtful. Outside the curtains, the real emergency department moved at its usual pace. Voices, alarms, footsteps, a baby crying somewhere near triage. Someone laughing near the lounge at a joke that had nothing to do with blood or protocol. Lena stepped out of the dim bay into that light, the smell of sweat and antiseptic slipping around her like a familiar coat. Behind her in the quiet of the now empty drill room, the mannequin stared up at the ceiling, silent witness to a different kind of work. Morning settled over the city in a soft, colorless way. From the ambulance bay, Phoenix looked hazy, the heat already working on the horizon. Inside St. Augustine, the light was cooler, filtered through layers of glass and dust. Lena stood at the central desk, flipping through a thin stack of charts. Someone had spilled coffee earlier. A faint ring stained the corner of the top page. She shifted the papers so it would not soak further. Behind her bay, 4 was alive with the small noises of a busy shift. A resident's voice rose firm, but not hurried. Breath sounds diminished on the left, he said. Hypotensive, tachycardic, unequal chest rise. I am calling tension, pneumothorax. Needle decompression, 14 gauge, 5th intercostal space, anterior axillary line. Lena glanced over. Janice was already at the instrument tray. Her hand moved straight to the catheter without looking at the labels. Needle clamp suture tubing, all where her fingers expected them to be. She pressed the catheter into the resident's palm. Timer, Carla called. The tech clicked the stopwatch. The resident found the landmark by feel. His hands were steady. The hiss of air came a moment later, sharp and clean. The heart rate on the monitor eased down. The blood pressure climbed. 24 seconds, the tech said. Carla marked it on the clipboard she carried during Viper drills. We will get it under 20, she said, but I will take that. She stepped out of the bay and joined Lena at the desk. He did not even reach for the stethoscope, Carla said, quiet enough that only Lena heard. Too loud in there, Lena said. Even without the helicopter sounds. They are starting to hear the important things, Carla said. At triage, a nurse recognized the slackness in a teenager's face while his friends laughed too loudly about a skateboard fall. She pulled him back before his pupils finished dilating. In Bay 6, a new intern adjusted a pelvic binder, without prompting, sliding it down from the iliac crests to sit over the trochanters, then checking the feet for warmth and pulse. In the hall, a transporter pushed a stretcher toward radiology. The wheels hit a small bump at the doorway. The patient's IV line tugged. The transporter stopped, checked the site, and only then moved on. Little corrections, quiet habits, things no one wrote memos about. The overhead pager clicked on. Dr. Rios, please report to the main lobby, a voice said. Lena looked up from the chart. The words felt out of place. Doctors went to the lobby for meetings or press or trouble. She could not think of what she had in any of those categories today. Carla raised an eyebrow. You are not on the schedule for an interview, she said. If they are trying to put me on a poster, tell them I left the country, Lena said. Carla smirked. I will give you 10 minutes, she said. If you are not back, I am sending a search party. Lena set the chart down and walked out of the department. The air in the hallway outside felt a degree cooler, washed in the neutral smell of waxed floors and elevator grease. The elevator ride up was short. The doors opened on the ground floor with a soft chime. The lobby was busier than it had been the first morning she had walked through it. Volunteers in blue vests pushed wheelchairs. A mother knelt to tie a child's shoe. Sunlight poured through the front doors in bright strips. Near the information desk, 3 figures in uniform stood together. Staff Sergeant Brooks wore his dress uniform this time, the fabric pressed flat, brass, polished. Beside him, a younger Marine in similar attire kept his posture formal but his eyes curious. The third man leaned slightly on a cane, his uniform jacket neat. The ribbons on his chest aligned with careful precision. Brigadier General Nathan Cole looked different upright. The sharpness that injury had stripped from his face had returned. There was still a faint pallor under his skin, the kind that clung after surgery and long nights in the ICU, but his eyes were clear. When he saw Lena, he straightened, shifting his weight from the cane without quite letting it go. Dr. Rios, he said. She crossed the space between them. General, she said, you look more comfortable without wires in your chest. He smiled, the expression small and real. Surgeons did tidy work, he said. Your needle did the first heavy lifting. Brooks stood a little behind him, hands clasped loosely at his back. He gave Lena a slight nod. Ma'am, he said, we did not mean to drag you away from your work. We are on our way back to base. Thought we should stop in. It is a short detour, Cole said. Beats sending another letter. He reached into his pocket with the hand that was not on the cane. His fingers closed around something and brought it out. The coin was round and silver edges, nicked and smoothed by years in uniform pockets. The unit insignia on one side had been rubbed down until the details blurred together. On the other, an eagle clung stubbornly to its perch, wings spread. He placed it in her palm. The metal was cool at first, then warmed under her skin. It had weight not heavy enough to drag enough to notice. I was given this a long time ago, Cole said. I have carried it through training grounds, deployments, too many briefings, and more hospitals than I care to count. I was going to leave it at Nightingale once when I thought I might not be walking out. Did not get the chance. Lena turned the coin over. The grooves caught at the ridges of her fingerprint. It clicked softly as it rolled against her skin. You do not have to leave it anywhere, she said. I am not leaving it, he said. I am placing it. There is a difference. He closed her fingers around the coin. You kept my heart from drowning in my own chest, he said. I would like you to have something that kept my hand steady through some ugly days. Seems fair. Brooks cleared his throat lightly. You kept me on this side of dirt too, he said. Different night, different sand, same hands. He gave a short, almost self-conscious smile. I did not bring a coin, he said. Figured I would not outdo the general. I brought something else. He took a folded photograph from his breast pocket. The edges were soft from handling. In the faded picture, a group of Marines stood outside a sand-colored tent. Some leaned on crutches, some sat on ammo boxes. In the center back turned to the camera, a woman in scrubs and a dusty hair tie handed a cup to someone in a cot. The image was blurred enough that her face did not show, but the angle of the shoulders, the way the head turned to listen, matched. Somebody snapped it when you were not looking, Brooks said. We kept it on the wall for a while. I thought you might want to know it existed. She looked at it for a long moment. Thank you, she said. She did not tuck it away immediately. She held it and the coin together, one in each hand, feeling the difference between paper and metal. Behind them, the automatic doors opened with a soft rush. A brief gust of outside air carried in heat and the smell of hot asphalt. Leon at the security podium tilted his head back, listening. A deep, steady thump began to roll through the building. It was not the recorded sound from the Viper drills. It was lower, wider, the kind that settled in the floor as much as in the air. Lena turned toward the windows. A CH-53E helicopter slid across the slice of sky visible between the hospital and the parking structure. The big transport filled the frame for a moment, gray against blue rotors spinning in a slow, heavy blur. As it passed the hospital, it dipped a fraction, just enough to shift its angle, a small nod from a very large machine. The windows vibrated, light jittered on the tile floor. People in the lobby looked up. A child pointed, tugging at his mother's sleeve. A volunteer paused with a wheelchair. Brooks watched the aircraft with a tight, fond expression. They heard where we were stopping, he said. Somebody up there thought it worth burning a little fuel. The helicopter slid out of view. The thump of its rotors faded until it was just another background hum, swallowed by the building. Silence followed for a breath, then the lobby's everyday sounds crept back in. Pages turned, shoes clicked. Someone's phone rang. Cole shifted his cane and looked at Lena. I told command this hospital saved my life, he said. I told them a lot of people had hands on that bed. I told them one person made a call before the test caught up. They asked if I wanted any special arrangements for my care going forward. And she asked. I told them I would be taking my chances with the same team that got me to the operating room awake, he said. If they wanted to send medals, they could send them to the unit. If they wanted to send trouble, they could keep it. Brooks checked his watch. We need to get back, he said. Planes do not wait for pretty speeches. Cole nodded. Thank you, he said to Lena. For Nightingale, for today, for whatever you will end up doing that I will not be around to see. Lena slipped a coin into her pocket. It sat there with a new particular weight. Get some rest, General, she said. Listen to whatever rehab tells you, even when it hurts. He smiled again, small but genuine. I will take that order, he said. They turned toward the doors. The automatic sensors caught their movement and opened with a sigh. Hot light rushed in as they stepped out onto the concrete. Lena watched them go. The glass reflected their backs for a moment, uniforms distorted slightly by the angle, then the doors closed and their shapes faded. When she returned to the emergency department, the smell of antiseptic and strong coffee met her again. In Bay 2, the mannequin from the drills had been shoved into a corner, half covered by a sheet. In Bay 7, Ms. Carson from earlier in the month sat upright, hair brushed, waiting for a transport upstairs. She raised a hand in greeting. Lena nodded back. At the central desk, Carla was in almost the same spot as before, pen in hand. You make any new friends? Carla asked. A few, Lena said. She pulled the coin from her pocket and set it on the counter for a second. The fluorescent lights struck the metal, bringing out the dull shine in the worn edges. Carla looked at it. Nice, she said. Worth anything. It already paid for itself, Lena said. She picked it up again and closed her fingers. The monitors along the bay showed their own slow pulse of color and light. Green lines traced out heartbeats. Numbers flicked, rose, and steadied. A ventilator sighed in a measured rhythm behind a curtain. Someone laughed quietly at the nurse's station. Someone else swore softly at a stubborn vein. Carla followed Lena's gaze down the row. Busy enough, Carla said. Lena nodded. Names would be written on charts and wristbands and computer screens. Some would stay a day, some would stay longer. Most would blur together over time, part of a long, continuous line of faces and voices. She put the coin back into her pocket and let her hand rest there for a moment. Names fade, she said. Breathing does not. She turned back toward the bays, toward the next monitor that needed an eye, and the next chest that needed a little more room to rise. The sounds of the department folded around her, steady and familiar as the day moved on. Thank you so much for listening to today's story. If this story resonated with you or made you reflect, I'd love to hear your thoughts. so feel free to share them in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss the next story.